And now let's now talk about more of the script that you will be listening. Now the first two sections that you will be listening are basically survival situations. Now what is survival situation? No, Daniel, not you this time. Yes. Okay, Hassan. Thank you. Now you are, yeah, what would be survivor situation? Survival means when you are in a country, you need to do things in order to get adjusted and to live there. These are called survival situations. Survival situations are like, I went to a grocery store and I'm buying something, or I need to buy tickets, or I'll give you an example as we move on, but the first two sections are always survival situations. So more of it is that whenever you are in this country, you may be going for entertainment, for traveling, so you might be buying tickets, or you might be going to a doctor, or you might be shopping. So these are some of the examples of survival situations, but I'm sure you can think of many. All right. And one more thing that I would like to say is that the last two sections that you will come across will not be survival situations, but they will be academic situations, training situations, the conversations that you are likely to hear while you are studying in an English-speaking country. For example, section 3 and 4 will always be academic background. The backdrop would be academic, where you will be in a campus, 3 or 4 students talking. Maybe they are discussing about the course, maybe they are discussing about the facilities at the dorms or something like that. So that's how that will be. What to expect when you are listening? Now please note that section 1 is a dialogue between two speakers. Now Hassan, I'm focusing you actually, alright? Now let's see. Dialogue means two people. Dialogue cannot be between many people. Normally dialogue is between two people. One person asking questions, the other person is giving answer. This could be a conversation between a travel agent. So dialogue, two people, and one person asking, the other person giving information. For example, I'm in London and I want to go to Manchester from London, and I'm at a train station. So naturally I'll be asking the booking clerk or the ticket officer about the train timings and the costs. So basically this is going to be a dialogue between two purposes. There would be transaction of information. So it could be travel arrangements in the first section. It will always be a dialogue, two people talking. For example, I may want to buy a movie ticket. I'm fond of movies, and maybe I want to buy a ticket for Avengers. So why not go and find out what is the cost, which cinema hall they are showing in. So I may go to the booking clerk or the ticket counter officer, and he may give me information and I may buy a ticket from. So the first section always a dialogue, and the purpose of the dialogue is to exchange information. But section 2, my dear friends, is not a dialogue. Section 1 was dialogue. Section 2 is not a dialogue. It is a monologue. Mono means one. Dia means two. Monologue, dialogue. So monologue means one person. That is, for example, if I'm a tour guide and I am giving you a tour of Karachi. So you are all sitting in the bus with me, and I am having a mic here like that, and I'm giving you information about, okay, on the right side you can see the famous Amejina Road, and on the left you can see the mausoleum of Quaid-e-Azam, and once we move on you can see the great parking plaza where they never park their cars or something. So it's a monologue. It can be a prompted monologue. Prompted monologue means that somebody else tells me that, okay, Mr. Naeem, please tell us about the tour. So that person will not again talk. He has just prompted me. So section 2 is either a monologue or a prompted monologue. Prompted means somebody told me that, okay, Mr. Naeem, please tell us, give us information. So it could be, well, when people travel, the most they want to see are museums. So it could be, this information could be about a certain museum, what time it opens, what are the entry tickets, and when it closes, and how many days a week it is open. So it could be about museum and its opening time, or it could be about a tour information, or anything that you can find when you are living in an English speaking country. Now let's move forward. So remember the first two sections. The first section was a dialogue, the second section was a monologue, but the situation was in social context, topics that you might encounter on daily basis. Now let's move on. What are you focusing on in section 1 and 2? Basically, you try to note specific information. Just as I made a question, where were you born? So basically the answer is London. So you have to note down that factual information. So the focus on section 1 and 2 is to understand some specific factual information that is being discussed in the text in section 1 and 2. Now, situations likely to be encountered by students at the university level are discussed in section 3 and 4. Now, those situations could be a training or a study course in an English-speaking country, including lectures, tutorials, seminars, and discussion with other students on academic matters. So remember, now the focus changes. Section 1 and 2, survival situation. Section 3 and 4, academic backdrop, academic situations. Now, so these final two sections that you will encounter will have situations which are related to education or training contexts. So see, the listening test is for both general and academic module students. So the first two sections are focusing for the general module students, while the last two sections are focusing for the academic module students. And as you should know that this test it becomes more and more challenging with every particular section. For example, if you found section 1 difficult, well, be happy. Section 2 would be even more challenging. And boy, section 3 would be even more. And this fourth section will be the most difficult. But again, if you are focused, you concentrate, and you know a bit of English, I'm sure you are going to go through. And since I'm going to offer you so many practice tests, that I'm confident that if you completely follow these lectures as well as the practice sessions, believe me, you can score a very high there. Okay, now please note that in the last two sections, the student identify key points as well as the details that is being discussed in the texts. You have to follow the meaning and you have to understand what arguments are being given in section 3 and 4. There is, in section 3, there is a conversation between 3 to 4 people. Conversation can be between 2 people also, but because it is a little more challenging, so there are 3 or 4 people. So not only that you have to understand what each one of them is saying, because there will be 3 different people or maybe 4 different people. So your tasks become even more difficult. You have to concentrate and find out what each of the speaker is saying. It could be a conversation between a tutor and a student they are talking about an assignment, or maybe 3 or 4 students discussing today's lecture. And then the last section is always an academic styled university lecture. and the pace is so high that sometimes it's very difficult to cope up with the pace, and that is where the students lose maximum points. Here you have to, in the last section, you have to listen for main ideas, specific information, and the attitude of the speaker. So these are the things that you have to understand. It might sound a little tough or tight, but believe me, if you concentrate, if you focus, and if you follow what I'm going to tell you during the test, you might find it a piece of cake. So let's move on further and let us summarize what I just told you. The IELTS test, listening test, has 4 sections. Each section has 10 questions, and the first 2 sections are talking about, they are similar in one way, that the topic is survival or social. They mean the same. So the first 2 sections, whatever you will be listening would be related to survival or social, the conversation that might take place in day-to-day life. And the last 2 sections, the topics or the conversation or the lecture that you would be hearing would be based on academic or training environment. So first 2 little easier, last 2 slightly more challenging. Section 1 will be dialogue, and dia means 2. So dialogue is always between 2 people. So section 1 will be a dialogue, while section 2 will be a monologue. Now, I don't know, you are all young people, but when I was young, there was a cassette player which had a mono and stereo version. So mono was, it had 1 speaker only, while the stereo had 2. So what we can say is that first section is a dialogue between 2 people, while section 2 is a monologue where just 1 person is speaking. Likewise, in section 3, there are 3 or 4 people talking, and it's a conversation. So it's also similar to a dialogue. While section 4 is just 1 person speaking at a very high pace, the accent would be also difficult, and you would not find it very simple. It's going to be tough. Now, what are the similarities? The first 2 sections are similar because they are both talking about survival situations, while the last 2 sections are similar because they are talking about academic or training like situations. But there are more similarities here. Section 1 and section 3 are similar because the listening that you are hearing here is between more than 1 people. Section 1 is a dialogue, while section 3 is a conversation. So here multiple people are speaking. And likewise, section 2 and section 4 are also similar because just 1 person is speaking in section 2 and 1 person is speaking in section 4. So this is a little information about the IELTS overview, and we can just see that, you know, section 1 comes first, then section 2 is a little more challenging. Section 1 was a dialogue, section 2 is a monologue, and both are about survival situation. Then we move on to the third section, which is a conversation, and after the conversation we move on to section 4. So that was a brief overview of our IELTS listening module. Now we are going to move on and talk about more details pertaining this IELTS listening test.